World hunger. 1 out of 9 persons living on the planet today is either hungry or malnourished. Now that's a very grim statistics. And it means that the United Nations goal of zero hunger by 2030 is not going to be met. But Jose Graziano da Silva, who's head of the FAO, which is the UN agency which is in charge of achieving zero hunger, says that there are things that we can do. Now he admits that we're not going to get there by 2030, but he also points out to another part of the grim fact, which is that the 2 main causes of world hunger are man-made. They are war and climate change. But he does emphasize that we are not helpless. There is a lot that we can do. There are smaller things, and that together maybe they can make a big difference. So with wars, maybe there's little, but some of it could be very productive. We can apply political pressure much more than we are now, and diplomatic channels, and we can ostracize the makers of terrors, because internationally ostracize them, because those who produce terror also produce hunger. But a lot more can be done with the issue of climate change, and some of this we already know. Now, one of the suggestions of Mr. Jose Graziano da Silva, I love that name, is that we change the way that we produce food, and that would, to him, make a very big difference. Now, we already know that 1/3 of the food that is produced, there is a lot of waste, whether it is at harvest or somewhere throughout the food chain. Not only do we individually waste food, but it's wasted all the way through. And there are efforts already to deal with that. But there are a lot of other things. I mean, the whole idea of distribution, which emphasizes local production. Now, to buy local means something like us who live in Western cities, or me who lives in Los Angeles, but it means a lot more to people who live in the third world. He points out that you're having countries like Ethiopia and Zimbabwe, where a lot of arable land is either being leased or sold to a lot of Arab countries or to China, and instead of being used. And if this could be stopped, and if there could be a lot more local production, then that would really help a lot of people have access to a lot more food. Then there's the issue of diversification, where there is a pilot program in India where you're dealing with 195 million people in India who are undernourished, and 40% of the children have that problem, and they're growth stunted. So the whole idea of diversification there, and the programs that they're trying to implement, is that whereas you're having farmers who grow one crop and that only occupies part of the year, then the rest of the time they're being taught what crop to use that could use that land which lays fallow for part of the year, and that would increase food production for them and also for the people around them. Then there are other issues, such as the price fluctuation from the commodities market. And here you're having a small fluctuation in price, which can mean disaster for a lot of poor farmers and a lot of poor people who spend most of their money and most of their income on food. So the EU is trying to draw regulation to make the commodities market friendlier to these very poor people, and having less consequence there. But so far it hasn't found the right mix of regulation that should have teeth. So, I mean, there are a lot of other things, but this gives you an idea of some of the things that we can do. And for us who are fortunate enough not to be directly affected by this, then one of the things that we can certainly do is be aware, and to have our awareness and hopefully our commitment be reflected in public opinion polls, in the hope that in turn that public opinion polls will influence the decision makers to be able to address this, I think, very, very crucial problem. Thank you for listening. I'm Danielle Levy.